got that entertainment side. I want to watch, I want to learn, and I want to watch more and more. Problem is, in his industry, you can't go back to watch many of the old podcasts because they don't stay evergreen because everything changes so much. But I asked Omar, who's part of our crypto symposium, which is a great group, to come in and give us some one-on-one on what's going on with cryptocurrency, to bring us up to date so we don't all sound like idiots. At least we know the foundational side. And then I asked Brock to come in and really give us the deep stuff. So let's give it up for Omar. Where are you, buddy?
I'm super stoked to be here. It's my first live presentation. Oh, awesome. This is the right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I actually stayed up yesterday for like 9 hours preparing this, so it's going to get better, but it's not as fancy as it could be. But I'm going to just basically go through the basics with all of you and get like very basic levels so you understand where we're at. I've been running a cryptocurrency news blog since last year, around February. I was mining Ethereum when it was like $8. I was working in a hotel. I was owned by the Lehman Brothers. It got sold for $90 million, so I got to rub shoulders with Blank Fine and a lot of these dudes. So I listened a lot, and it was pretty enlightening for me. Anyway, since I'm privileged enough to luckily have an audience like you guys who have been watching. How many people watch again? Awesome. So you guys support a lot. It gives me a reason to be following the news daily and giving it back. And oftentimes I learn from people, so I like to just basically use the brain to get the synaptic connections all strengthened and working in a way to hopefully help you guys invest in smart ways moving forward. It's not investment advice at all. It's just basic stuff. So let's get into it. How many people are holding as well cryptocurrency? Okay, so some of this might seem redundant, but hopefully you catch something there that's new. And we'll get into
Who's lost when it comes to crypto? Who's lost, honestly?
Completely? Awesome. I designed this for you. Thanks, Ken. Because I was supposed to have a friend here who's a comedian that was going to come and watch it, but he couldn't make it out, so it's really for you guys. Okay, so why cryptocurrency? Limitless opportunities. There are opportunities in healthcare, education, medicine, all over when you look at how you can use it. When it comes to peer-to-peer decentralization, so one of the biggest things is cutting out the middleman, taking banks out of it, taking Facebook and Google out of it. I know you mentioned Amazon last time I was here, possibly even going down after 2020, so it's all going to be possible if they don't catch on to this trend. Transfer huge sums of money internationally, so I could walk across an airport with $100,000 in my pocket, a little device, if I feel like it, without having to report it to anybody. I literally have it here in a little device. Very secure. Micropayments. So we've never had the opportunity to charge per second that you watch people. So I believe PayPal charges 30 cents per transaction. Also heard Ken mention that. So you can't really charge 1 cent or a quarter of a cent for every second watched yet. There's no payment method that can track that. That'll be possible with cryptocurrency. Own your own identity and be rewarded. So you actually have your own real reputation. You can't erase things that you've done that might have been bad. So yeah, it all lives on the blockchain. You can sell information about yourself. You can advertise yourself. And only share whatever you feel like monetizing. Be your own bank. So you have that bank in your pocket. You have no idea how much freedom that gives you. I don't even have to really work. I don't have to have a YouTube channel. I've been freed by cryptocurrency. It's amazing. I came from working day to day in restaurants and trying to get to LA. So it was almost like a dream for me to be like, I want to get to LA and be an actor, and I want to do it, but I don't want to have to worry about money. And I feel like finding this really, really freed me up. Avoid fiat inflation. So we're going to talk about that in a minute, which is pretty obvious, obviously. Obviously. Okay. Obviously. Oh, there it goes. So what is money? I mean, traditionally, it's very important. You have to look at where money comes from to understand why it's awesome. So seashells have been used as money, but you can find different color seashells. You can find more of the similar seashells. So it's pretty inflationary. They keep showing up on the shore. We use tulips, tulip mania. Everybody knows those soared in prices. And US dollars, currencies around the world. Gold has been one of the best means of storing money and storing value, because value is really, I worked really hard, and I feel like I want to take a vacation next week, and I want to travel the world. I want to go to Helsinki, but I've been busting my butt for a whole month. I should be able to take a month off or get similar value, but what is the value of my work relative to somebody else's value? So I put it in a unit to store. So gold has traditionally been an awesome one. It's only created during celestial events, so supernovas. It requires intensive labor to extract and circulate. People die all the time doing it. It endures destruction, lasts for a very long time, and it can be melted down and divided. Now, these are some of the bad things about gold, because I like to talk about that too on my channel. For the record, I hold gold and I hold silver. I sold most of my stocks, I still hold some stocks. But it hasn't been as fun to me then as much as cryptocurrency. The exact amount can't be counted and a finite amount cannot be determined. There are still scientists working to this day to try to create gold and create that element. So maybe they'll pull it off, you never know. Painstaking and dangerous to extract, creating environmental and personal physical danger. So people die all the time trying to get gold, and also they're hurting the environment in the meantime, creating pollution. It's heavily manipulated via paper derivatives used for trading on major precious exchanges. So like on the COMEX market, they'll take a piece of gold and they can print almost an infinite amount of derivative paper contracts to trade that instead of actual physical gold, not really demanding physical delivery. And therefore, they can suppress the price. I think yesterday silver got slammed down from like almost 17 bucks, 16.80 to 16.10. So that happens almost constantly as it goes up. It's difficult to carry large amounts. I mean, I also have one of those silver monster boxes, and honestly, I went to pick it up at the post office, and the lady's like, "What do you have in here?" And I was like, it's metal. And I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna look like a terrorist. It's silver. But it was really heavy. I had to carry it to my car, and it's difficult to divide. Even if you are gonna melt it down, you're gonna have to find somebody to do it, or get an extremely hot furnace to do it yourself. Okay, so this is a pretty simplified explanation of how money gets made. Obviously, it's more complicated. It's meant to be complicated, therefore people don't understand how it's created or what money really is. So we have the Federal Reserve really lending money to our government that generates a lot of debt, and we pay the interest for that via taxes, which is kind of extortion when you really look at it, because they can just print more money realistically and not charge us taxes. So it's really a way to keep the middle class down, is what some say, and I guess corporations as well, in a certain sense. It's not a very fair system when you're looking at the fact that they borrow money, the government. It doesn't print its own money. It's a private corporation held by private shares. In 1913, the biggest bank cartels met up in Jekyll Island, many of you guys already know, and they decided to take out the influence of the smaller banks that were getting a lot of influence. So they literally, JP Morgan and company met up, and they have been pretty successful since in creating the Federal Reserve. In 1913. So the dollar was pegged to gold until 1971 when Nixon administration took it off the gold standard, so which was great because the dollar looked stable. We were all pegged to gold, so you had everyone saying, hey, the dollar's pretty awesome. But now we're really pegged to oil, and as we know, they're trying to work on pipelines globally to work without the pipelines and systems that we have set up, certain countries, in order to completely exclude the United States from the oil market. So if you don't have to use oil to buy, the dollar to buy oil, and you can use something else, then the dollar really loses all value since it's only faith-based. I thought this was really cool. I found it yesterday while doing this for you guys. So $10 in gold coin. This is an actual $10 bill. It's really interesting. I think that's a really great bill to be holding in your pocket, but it's not like that anymore if you look in your pocket. It's not redeemable for anything. So Thomas Jefferson actually regretted after writing the Constitution, and he's been quoted as having been really excited about letting the government borrow money because it would stop wars from other countries creating credit in order to destroy America, being able to destroy America by basically printing money in the short term. The long term, it might be better to borrow money. However, he took back his word there by saying, I wish it were possible to obtain a single amendment to our Constitution. I would be willing to depend on that alone for the reduction of the administration of our government. I mean an additional article, taking from the federal government the power of borrowing. I now deny their power of making paper money or anything else a legal tender. Yeah. So this is, you've probably seen this meme around, and I'm really excited if you haven't. So this is the inflation. And it's actually turned out to be pretty true. You look at the dollar, it's been going down in value. $20 could buy you a lot more back in the day. And now Bitcoin has been doing the same thing. I went to one of Brock's $10 million Bitcoin pizza party events in New York, where every year, I guess, people celebrate the fact that one gentleman paid $10 million in that time, when Bitcoin was worth even less, for one pizza. So people were saying you couldn't use it as a currency. He got really excited. I actually heard about this back then. And he bought a pizza with it. And I was like, oh, what a terrible. How many Bitcoin? What was it?
It was 10,000 Bitcoin.
10,000 Bitcoin.
For 2 Papa John pizzas at current prices today, you're paying about 16 million a pizza.
That's crazy. So it'll probably look pretty similar in the future as time goes by. So people have something called a normalcy bias. I don't know if you've heard of this one. And with normalcy bias, you get used to thinking things will always stay the same. You get pretty comfortable, even though realistically the world changes almost every single 10 years, pretty drastically. And so, we saw it in the Holocaust, is probably the biggest example. There were some Jews who stayed in Germany despite everyone around them in similar outlying areas being harassed by the Nazis. And the fact is, it took a very long time before they understood that the disaster was affecting them. And we see that with the economy and money. Nobody's really concerned in trying to invest in their own knowledge about money. So with cryptocurrency, you don't just conserve your wealth, you actually get to prosper. So this is this is the entire scale of Bitcoin. You can see, it always tends to look the same when it hits these peaks. But yeah, it's traditionally gone up. Nobody who bought Bitcoin at any point that held on has lost money with Bitcoin if they held on over time. So what is cryptocurrency? It's cryptography and currency. So being able to have security, encrypt information, make it private, and currency, a form of transferring that value. So let's talk Bitcoin. The first cryptocurrency that I created, it was a white paper that was shared on a hacker forums by this person, individual, woman, time traveler, ninja, god, government, whatever it was, that shared this piece of paper that was revolutionary about blockchain. So nobody knows who it is. There have been people, hint, it's not Craig Wright, who say that they are Satoshi through time, but they can't actually prove it. Introduction to the blockchain technology behind Bitcoin and many coins since. So there are coins now coming out that don't just use blockchain. There are coins that use Tangle, like IOTA, and it's almost exponential, the rate of learning, because it started with Bitcoin, this idea, and it evolves daily, which is really exciting to be following. But what is blockchain? So the way I describe it the best, it's a ledger. It's very similar to a ledger if you ever took an accounting class. It's literally just transferring of balances and keeping track of those balances on a piece of paper. So a piece of paper would have a limit, and it's a similar thing with Bitcoin. There's a limit to how many transactions you can put on its ledger in one block. So imagine one ledger being one block, and it's block after block after block after block over time. So mining, it looks pretty awesome. That's why I got excited. Free money, you leave a computer on all day, and then you just get to sit back as the price goes up for cryptocurrency, and you scored. So it's not that easy. Mining is the way that they secure the network for cryptocurrency. However, it's not that easy because you do have to invest in the hardware, and you have to have the latest hardware. Usually, balance electrical costs can cost a lot in California. I'm not mining right now. I think that it scales in the summer where you pay almost 24 cents per kilowatt hour here. I was paying 11 cents in Miami, so it's massive. Cooling, you have to worry about a fan. It's very, very loud. I have a fan that's blasting at my systems, 2 fans actually, and you can't hear yourself think, which is actually pretty cool. Keep up to date with the latest software, so you have to constantly downloading and make sure you have the latest version that's patched and on the right blockchain. Sell as necessary to stay in business. So a lot of mining companies go out of business because they have to sell maybe more than they can in order to keep the cost, to keep the business running. So it's not that easy. But what's amazing about it is that mining secures in the sense that 50 Bitcoin are released every single block. And so this happens block after block after block after block. And the miner who does the most intense math, using their computer, their graphics cards, their chips, their specialized ASIC chips, whatever it is, those miners get a reward. It's always random, so one person in the whole world that's international actually gets the shot at having their computer get that Bitcoin, which would be worth at yesterday's prices about $180,000 per block. And these are released about every 10 minutes on average. Now, mining international, you get that chance to mine. Increasingly difficult as more people try to mine and get that reward. The math gets harder. And yeah, oh, there you go, 142,500. It's actually a lot more today. I'm super excited because the market is at 112 billion today. It was around 92 billion yesterday, if I'm right. So yeah, today's a really exciting day to get started. We've been in a kind of bear trend and then a flatline period leading up to August 1st. And as soon as August 1st hit, I got really excited. I said, guys, it's time, watch. It's gonna start right now. And it's actually starting, so we got a lot of new money coming in, a lot of excitement. Oh, no, it's still, trust me, you still have like Penn said, at least 2 years, at least 5 years, maybe even 5 years. Nearly impossible to make a fraudulent transaction, you incur costs instead. Okay, so the reward actually is no longer 50 Bitcoin, unfortunately. It's actually changed due to something called the halvening, which is what makes Bitcoin amazing. Every 4 years, the reward for solving a block halves, the miner securing the network. And so the current reward actually is 12.5 Bitcoin. Every 4 years, Bitcoin halves the reward for those miners. So it went from 50, 25 to 12.5, and it'll continue to go down until the year 2145, when we expect that the last Bitcoin will be minted and mined. And then the miners will only be making money off of fees that you pay, very tiny fees that you pay for moving money around to the miners. And the price tends to go up surrounding these events. So I think when I started my channel, actually the halvening had been coming up, and sure enough, it's proven true even this time. So only 21 million coins will ever exist. The last Bitcoin expected to be mined in 2145, low rate of inflation, and there have been Bitcoin that have been lost forever, like a gentleman who threw a laptop away that he had gone to college without, after putting a lot of Bitcoin and mining a lot of Bitcoin on it when Bitcoin was worth less than pennies. And those are gone forever. He looked in the dump, he contacted the trash company after coming back from college saying, oh, look at this Bitcoin thing, it's at $30 now, and maybe I have something. And no, it's gone forever. It'll never be retrieved. So if you send to the wrong address, it's gone. That's it. And it's taken off the actual total supply, if you think of it that way. So even less in circulation. So demand continues to grow while supply shrinks. We have great companies everywhere becoming interested. Goldman Sachs, people investing in it, and other hedge funds. People investing are asking for this information, so Goldman Sachs has to show interest, and they have been. Companies like Microsoft, Bank of America are experimenting with different technologies as a way to reduce overhead. Emails take a very long time to send, wire transfers. Countries like Venezuela, Argentina, India have driven citizens. We've seen huge inflation happen in these countries, and they are some of the ones to adopt it the quickest and really understand and have a need for it. Russia, Australia, Malta, Japan, Switzerland, we can literally name them on a daily basis, all adopting legislation to make it more inviting for companies and startups to come on board and innovate there. And people who've enjoyed some growth now slowly invest even more money. Oh yeah, so like myself, for example. You first hear about Bitcoin, then you wait like 3 months, and maybe you get verified, you try to get verified on exchange, then you wait a few months, and then you put like $5 in it, then you wait a few months, and then you throw a lot of money into it. Well, a decent amount of money into it, and then maybe you cash out your 401k, your Roth IRA, and all that fun stuff. Then you cash all of them out. That's generally the way it works. So over time, people have just found out about it. Maybe some of you guys, it's the first time you even hear about it. So it'll be a while before maybe some of you guys who have a little bit more dough are able to throw a lot more money into this thing. And it continues to happen as you feel more confident, especially in a bull market like the one that looks like started today. More airline stores and online shops are accepting cryptocurrencies or even working with blockchain to reduce that overhead cost. Thousands in Japan as they took away a tax that actually doubled taxes for spending and using cryptocurrency. So now it's actually more of a currency in Japan, for example. So how to send and receive Bitcoin, you need 3 things, a kind of software or hardware in order to access the blockchain and your funds. You do need your private key, which is something you want to keep private. You try not to show it on your screen. People like to take your screenshots. Hackers will get into your computer and screenshot it so you never expose that anywhere. That's why I use this device that hides it. It's almost, the way I describe it is almost like a mailbox. It's the key to your mailbox is your private key, so you can't send without it. However, you can always send to your address. You can send yourself, other people can send you things to your mailing address using your public key, so that's what you share with people. Usually it's a long string of addresses, however there are companies coming out now to simplify that and just make it like a username, things we're most familiar with, like a password and a username. So some of where we are today, there are over 1,000, when I checked last night, 1,032 different tokens are listed on coinmarketcap.com. Mining has become so difficult that people actually pool together all of that mining power and divide the shares. There's this big argument about what's going to happen going forward. Are the public blockchains like Bitcoin going to be the currency, or is it going to be a private blockchain? Like maybe Amazon has such a huge market cap, or Apple, that they create their own currency, and people use that instead, or maybe even a country, FedCoin, we call it. Regulations, laws, and taxes aren't completely clear. There's this whole thing about hard and soft taxes, for example. Some people say you have to pay taxes on every single trade. I went from Dash to Bitcoin to Ethereum, and some people say, you know, I can give you a piece of paper, an accountant can tell you, and you can file softly, and therefore you only have to pay those taxes when you cash the fiat. So there's arguments about that. I'm trying to figure that out. You have to contact a professional. Bitcoin is in the midst of a continued debate as to how to scale. It still continues. A huge one that has me really excited happened on the 1st, which is why there's a lot of excitement now. But it continues to be, how do you get that one-page ledger bigger? How do we do that? Do we exclude the date and that kind of thing? I'm just talking about, for example, a real ledger. Do we exclude the last name of somebody? How do you make it smaller so that can fit more words? So that would be like SegWit. And then you have the people who would like to increase the block size from 1 megabyte, for example, limit, to 8 megabytes. So you have 8 times increase. So that's Bitcoin Cash, which just forked out of Bitcoin. So that continues to happen. Darknet market operators have been arrested. So we've seen Alphabet Market, the biggest one, go down. Hansa went down, I believe. So some of those places that have made cryptocurrency really look bad, but also got the economy actually being used for currency, have just gone down, creating less volume for legal transactions, therefore less news, making it look good for cryptocurrency. Our token securities, so now you have to do KYC if you're trying to invest in a lot of these initial coin offerings to invest in a company here in the United States. Know your client. Basically, you have to have that information sent over. So that's a big thing that's coming out now. Popular altcoins. So let's talk about a few alternatives to Bitcoin. Altcoins are alternatives. Bitcoin Cash, so I put the symbols on the top right for you there. Bitcoin Cash just forked 8 megabyte blocks. Really not many other differences than that as far as Bitcoin. We have Litecoin. Litecoin, some say, is the silver to Bitcoin's gold, where Bitcoin might not be something you want to use for daily transactions. Maybe it's just a low supply, and more people put money into it, so it grows up over time. It's like an awesome savings account that grows. Litecoin could possibly even be used for transactions. They're already running something called Lightning Network that will enable you to be using it at stores that accept it much quicker. Basically, I can send you Litecoin in a fraction of a second, right away, and pay for something. Bitcoin might take you 15 plus minutes. It's got 4 times as much inflation, and it's the first major fork of Ethereum. There have been several before that, but this is really the one that got traction by a gentleman named Charlie Lee. We have Ripple. So Ripple is meant to be an alternative to Swift for the banks, actually an improvement. So if you look at the banks, they use something called Swift in order to have the wire transfers go from bank to bank. Swift is slow, it's expensive, but it works, but not very efficiently. Now, Ripple would be a cryptocurrency. Some say it's centralized, but it does enable that bank transfer. So if you do believe that banks will be around in the future, this might be one coin to invest in. Dash. So Dash is trying to beat Bitcoin in the payment services industry. That's literally what they are trying to do. That is their goal. They are headquartered now in Arizona State University, right next to PayPal, which is funny because they're trying to beat PayPal at its own game. They have nearly instant transactions using something called masternodes, where you stake, lock up 1,000 Dash tokens, and then you get a say in what they do. You can fund some of their Dash money when they create blocks to hire people to go to events, to market, and you also enable really fast transactions, and you can also obfuscate them, make them more secret. You also have Steam, so this is one that's been really good to me over time. I got on Steam on last July, and I found that more followers that you get over Steam, the more money you make just for posting content, curating content, hitting like, commenting, and you don't have to actually put any money into it to make money, which is really revolutionary. It's a social media alternative. So I tend to get a lot of comments here, which is really great, that I might not get on YouTube or Facebook. Really helpful, constructive comments as a creator that help me do better work or get me more interested in things. Whereas YouTube, I might have to get through a lot of hate comments because they don't really care if I downvote them. Whereas on Steemit, people want you to upvote them so that they can get money based on your voting power. Really interesting platform. Ethereum. So Ethereum is what got me started. I was flustered with the Bitcoin debate, and then I heard about Ethereum, I ignored Ethereum, and then I heard about it again. I said, let me look into it, and then I got really, really excited. Because with Ethereum, you don't just send a small bit of code to move money back and forth. You can actually send code itself, program code that cannot be stopped unless you destroyed every computer in the world that is mining Ethereum, or you shut off the internet, temporarily even. So Ethereum created smart contracts. It was really the first major smart contract platform where you can program money. I want to send Jill on her birthday 15F if Donald Trump doesn't win at golf this weekend. You can program whatever you want or create an application just like Steemit right on Ethereum. And we have many, that's what these ICOs are. They're creating platforms oftentimes to build over Ethereum, applications that cannot be stopped. So you have Digix, for example, which is a gold-backed cryptocurrency. This one's really exciting for me to talk about to people who have never understood cryptocurrency. It's not physical, it's not tangible, because it's gold-backed cryptocurrency that's stored in vaults in Singapore. Singapore has traditionally been awesome for storing your gold because it's very secure. And yeah, so Digix is putting certificates that are putting pictures on them on the Ethereum blockchain. Every single certificate is backed to gold, is backed by a token. Therefore, you can just use that token to move gold back and forth, and you can demand that gold back on demand, or have it mailed to you, or go there. Funfair, so they have casinos now being built. Storage, you can store in a decentralized way, or rent out your hard drive. I do this, I keep my computer on, even my regular computer, allocate a certain amount of the terabytes on my computer, and it just mines and pays me out every single month, a certain amount of storage tokens that have also gone up over time. Blockchain Capital, so I gave that to Brock Pierce, that was a shout out to him. He built that using Ethereum on ERC20 token. That's what you call these tokens built over Ethereum. And then you have Golem, which is also a very exciting project, which allows you to rent or buy CPU power. So you are Disney or Pixar, and you need a really intense animation to be animated, rendered. It can take a very long time and it can cost you a lot of money. Now, if you use Golem, it's going to cost you significantly less. And if you have extra processors, or you have a computer graphics card mining Ethereum, but not using